Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Santa Rita Union School District Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. We can start off with a roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Here.
Ms. Alvariano,
Here.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval,
Here.
Mr. Neil Patel, and Ms. Sarah Turner are not present.
Okay, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the board agenda?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, today on closed session, we have items 2.1, a student discipline matter under Educational Code 48918. We have item 2.2, public employee appointment slash employment under Government Code Section 54957. We also have item 2.3, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.8 and 54956.9. And item 2.4, public employee performance evaluation under Government Code Section 54957. Do we have any public comments regarding closed session items?
No, we do not.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn the closed session?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, we'll see everybody afterwards. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. I'd like to reconvene this meeting back into order. In closed session, the board considered student discipline matter 2022.07. The board voted 3-0 to approve a stipulated expulsion agreement for this matter. Okay, we're moving on to 5.1, approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve items 5.2 to 5.4?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to item 6.1. Is there any comments from SRTA
No, there are not.
and CSEA?
Yes. Let me bring this closer. CSCA met with Becky Moore on Monday for our usual EERC meeting. As always, a very productive meeting. We would like to thank Becky for the great communication between CSCA and the district. Juana Casillas, CSCA Chapter President.
Okay, thank you, Juana, for your comments. And then next we have 6.3, Spotlight, Centro binacional.
So I'd like to introduce Dr. Saraí Martinez with Centro Binacional, and she has a presentation. Yeah, they have it for her. Sarai gets ready, I just want to say thank you to her for joining. Thank you to her for joining us, and the great work that's been happening the last few weeks. As I shared with you, we've been meeting with our community at Santa Rita as well. So I'll turn it over to Sarai.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sammer, for inviting me for letting us use the space. As she mentioned, my name is Sarai Martinez. I'm the executive director with Centro Binacional para el Desarrollo Indígena Oaxaqueño, which translates to the Binational Center for the Development of Indigenous Oaxacan Communities. We started our work here about 15 years ago, a lot of it concentrated in South County. A lot of the belief has been that indigenous communities exist in South County, but the reality is that we have a big population throughout the county, in this neighborhood in specific too. And we work with indigenous farm workers, not just from Oaxaca, but from Guerrero. In the schools, we have a lot of Mixtecos from Guerrero. And currently, we're hosting weekly and monthly meetings at the Santa Rita Parent Resource Center. And we have about 25 to 30 parents meeting every week. All of our meetings are run in Mixteco. And I'm also, raised here in Salinas from indigenous parents from the Zapotec region in Oaxaca. So happy to be here to talk about this. And I think I remember how to do this. I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. So a little bit about Centro. We are a 501c3 organization. We have a governing board, and our vision really is to achieve the well-being, equity, and self-determination of indigenous communities. Our mission is to foster and strengthen the civic participation, economic, social, and cultural development, as well as the resistance of indigenous communities. A lot of our work comes to really also explaining, who are indigenous communities, and really having that broad understanding that as a Latino, Hispanic, Mexicano community, we're very cultural and linguistic diverse. So a lot in how we define indigenous is really being native from a particular place. And for our community from Oaxaca, from Guerrero, is really from that place. From that state in Mexico that in a lot of our communities have been really dispossessed from our cultural and linguistic identity and been pushed into this racial identity to become Mexican or to become Latino. But the reality is they continue to hold our indigenous background and our language. In case you want to see Oaxaca, it's right on the south part of the country, and really wanted to say that about 32% of our population in the state speaks an indigenous language other than Spanish. Again, let me see. And I wanted to talk a little bit more of this kind of social political context that our communities face. Is that a lot of the disadvantages that come from migrating to the U.S. start from even our own country of origin or the place that we come from. A lot of the times we don't have the resources in our towns, access to health, access to education. So all of that we carry as we migrate to the U.S. So there's really, from both sides and those limitations from racism we face not only as individuals but as in systems from both sides of the U.S.-Mexican border. And here, we continue to be advocates to ensure that our community has access to information in their own language, or that there's a broader understanding of their existence. And as I mentioned, that racism not only exists within institutions but also individuals, and a lot of the times that racism comes even from our own communities, of discriminating because we're indigenous, because we look a certain way. I think most recently, and I'm sure a lot of people learn about our communities from the LA City Council scandal, calling, our community also like uglies for being short and dark, including other racial comments to our African American community. But that exists within the Latino community, that exists within, the broader community, and not just in the systems, but really impacting or also how we migrated to the U.S. And let's talk a little bit about the diversity. If we can say, maybe not a number, how diverse or how linguistic and cultural diverse is Mexico. I don't know if you have a guess on that. But we have about 68 different indigenous communities in Mexico. Again, it's not this homogeneous population that everyone speaks Spanish, that everyone looks the same. There's really a big diversity of our communities in just Mexico, not even talking about South America. As I mentioned, it is really important to also understand that nations and state borders was something that was invented after, we already lived there. And as you can see here, I think it's very important because we also know that in this neighborhood specifically, you serve the Mixtecos from Guerrero, from Oaxaca. And as you can see here, the line of the Mixteco territory of nation really covers multiple, which will be considered states right now. So it's Guerrero, Oaxaca, Puebla, and you can really find diversity even within that Mixteco language. And just to give an example in how important it is, and part of our work with parents is really trying to figure out how we become more responsive to the linguistic need of parents. And again, continue with the diversity, 16 different indigenous languages in the state of Oaxaca, not in addition to the Mixteco, which, it's in this part. I know there's some also Triqui community in this region, and a lot more in South County, but we still see that need of that language. Just a little bit of the languages. I don't think I need to speak much about those again. But one of the things that we feel is important is to understand how, and I apologize, I guess I didn't. We use this slides for other presentations, so my apologies, I didn't catch that. But there is the need, especially, and we try to push this for any institution that receives even federal funding, as is part of, compliance of the law, to provide interpretation when receiving those funds. But really try to understand what type of interpretation parents need. A lot of the times, and through the pandemic, we found that parents weren't able to access information online because they couldn't not only not have internet access, but really having the technology and the know-how on how to navigate those systems. But if when trying to provide an interpreter, what we ask always is, it's important to ask what municipality the person is, to enable to confirm what type of interpreter they need. And I know we had a case similarly here where we provided, our office was contacted to come and interpret for some students, and we came, and when we asked what town, I guess they, the student didn't know. Sometimes they're just ashamed to share where they're from. And they couldn't figure it out, so we came with two different variations of Mixteco. Someone that spoke Mixteco from a specific town that we know is predominant here, and then another one that is closer to understanding people from Mixteco from Guerrero. And we found out that when we were told that the student was Oaxaqueño, but when we talked to the student, we found out that the student is from Guerrero, not Oaxaca. So again, it's really important, especially if there's a parent in distress or a student in distress, to try to learn what town they're from, because that will help determine in asking for the right interpreter. So there's a little bit of the kind of how to find out and identify the language is just the village, the county, and the district that they belong, because that will help us find the best interpreter for that person. And I think here, just to talk a little bit too about the complexity of the languages, just in Mixteco alone, we have 81 different variations of Mixteco. And that's, like, really different to the fact that, a word could mean something in one language and a total different meaning in the other. In people not being able to understand each other completely. So again, like really ensuring that information is accurate. This is just an example of the main tricky towns that we're able to identify. A lot of the folks that we have in South County are from San Juan Copala, from Jostlahuaca. We haven't been able to find, and you find more of San Martin y Tuñoso in the Central Valley. So again, like because our communities migrated network, we're able to kind of point out what communities belong to what regions. And I think I wanted to talk a little bit about more too in this concept of understanding our communities. We know that our communities have migrated within Mexico and outside Mexico, mostly in the 80s. And we saw a big increase in the 90s, and I'll explain a little bit more of that. But another thing that we're trying to do with Centro is really reclaim our ancestral knowledge of working the land. I mean, it's not a coincidence that a lot of our communities work in the fields, because that's what, our ancestral knowledge. A lot of, corn is a gift from indigenous communities in the Americas to the world, really, of how corn got originated. So a lot of our knowledge comes from working the land, and that's, you see that as our community works in the fields. But a lot of, in the reason why we came to the U.S. has been a lot of that displacement of where we work in our towns. And I was living in Mexico in the 90s when the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, passed in the 90s. My parents really sustained themselves from working in producing corn, and we saw a really big decline of the cost of corn and other agricultural produce, and really coming more with cheaper corn from like the U.S. and like this like state funded stores like I forgot the name right now, Conasupos, like that will sell that. A lot of that displaced our communities, and that's and we saw a big increase here in the U.S. Again, this slide, we usually put it here just to like emphasize the importance of counting our community. A lot of the folks ask me, look, well, how many indigenous farm workers we have in working in the Salinas Valley or in any city? And what I always say is that there has been since the beginning a lack of understanding of how to document our presence, again, because we've been kind of checkboxed by being Mexicanos or being Latinos. So there hasn't been that count. Even in schools, as I was working in some other schools trying to figure out, okay, what's the percentage of our students, we're not able to find that number because, again, like we've been kind of put in the box of Latinos or Mexicanos. And what it does there is it really invisibilize the needs of indigenous farm workers or indigenous students, because we don't know how many students need interpretation, how many students need interpretation in parent meetings or in classrooms where parents may come to one meeting and being offered to sign up and not able to know how to read and write or being able to understand Spanish and feeling really unwelcome by not being able to to fit in. So a lot of that we don't know because there's really not a way to capture that. And I think that's something that, we hope to work with the board in some future. Again, the parents are really trying to figure out what, and you may see us at sometimes here kind of presenting on some of the needs and things that will improve the participation and the learning of our Indigenous students here in this district. To highlight on this, we have the latest census that we were able to, that was independent, not through the U.S. Census, but it was the Indigenous Farm Worker Study, and that was in 2019, and 2009, I think, yeah. I need to double check. It really estimated that we have 155 Indigenous 165,000 Indigenous children and farm workers, not to count, our Indigenous folks that live in Seaside, per se, that work in the hospitality field, because we do also have some Indigenous folks there. And just to see like a little map and visual, the 90s was really when you saw an increase of Indigenous farm workers really joining the workforce in the U.S. Because again of the displacement in agriculture in our towns. So I think that just shows this is some of the major regions in California that you see the presence of Indigenous farm workers. The Central Coast being number 1, and that really counts all the way from Ventura County to Santa Cruz County, how it was conducted, and then the second largest is the Central Valley. And I think that I know I had 15 minutes, so I try my best to put a big overview of kind of brief understanding of our communities and where we are and some of the limitations. And we do have 4 offices. So our main administrative office is in Fresno. And we have an office in Madera and in Salinas. We just got an office here at the beginning of the year. And then in Greenfield, so that you can see our phone numbers and our addresses. And happy to be here, to be invited, and hopefully we can continue to collaborate. I don't know if there's time. Is there questions or?
Yeah, no, I'm sure we have questions. Yeah. For the monthly meetings, what are the topics you typically cover with the families?
Yeah, so how we started to meet was that parents, and I think we met with the vice principal at that time with with Santa Rita Elementary School, that the parents were really concerned about safety because there was a hit and run from one of the students. I'm sure you're aware, and that student was an Indigenous student. So we started meeting, and we met with the city, we met with the school, the parents, and that kind of just sparked the meeting and getting information in their language. Right now, the parents are going through a leadership kind of, academy training program. So we have our graduation actually tomorrow. So right now it has been about leadership in learning about systems and, kind of how it works here. So those are kind of be some of the topics.
And do you have approximately, I don't know if this be a summer question, as far as how many families we have within our district? And they principally located within the Santa Rita?
So
Yeah, that's a really good question. We don't yet. Again, that comes with some of the limitation, but we do have. I don't think we have that many parents. Everyone complains that we don't have that many, but when 25 to 30 families, parents show up, to me it's it's a success to have them. And Summer has been there, and we have one room the parents and another one the kids, and there's a lot of us, and I just don't know the number.
Yeah. So for those meetings, we've had the best turnouts we've had for 34 minutes in the district. Like Sarait shared, there's a real challenge in identifying that number because we don't have anything for the families to mark that would identify them as Indigenous. And so that's part of what I've been talking to Yennefer about, is kind of the idea of it's not part of what's reported in CalPADS, therefore it's not kind of part of what's recorded in ARIES. And so Sarait and I have talked about some ideas and ways that we could collect that data.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question as far as And I'm sure you two have been working as far as like recommendations as far as how our district or board can, I guess, help support a lot of those families. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the kids are the ones going to suffer in their educational experience if that doesn't happen. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's a lot of challenges, even with parents. For some of we have this in our work in Fresno, that many parents, their primary language is Mixteco or any other indigenous language, but for Mixteco, their kids learn Mixteco at home as their first language. So when they come to school, many times they're put in English. Not having an understanding that, and then parents wanting them to learn Spanish because that's their second language to navigate with outside folks, and then English. Many parents don't speak English, so we have some indigenous youth that are bilingual in English and indigenous languages, not Spanish. And vice versa. We have trilingual students. So I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities for the district to, be creative, to learn how to work with indigenous students and their parents, and how to best support them. Because there's those two. We'll hear more parents wanting them to learn Spanish, and I don't know how the district is placing them here. If they go straight to English, but there's a lot of kids that don't speak Spanish as they come in.
Oh, interesting. Did you guys have any questions or comments?
About a week and a half ago, I was at Santa Rita Park and I was having a little meeting, and there was a gentleman who came up and said his son was having a meeting at the high school district, and his son wasn't performing well, and he was concerned that he didn't understand what the teachers were telling him. And I gave him my card to reach out. I told him I would join him at that meeting to see if they were providing interpretation. But are you guys partnering with the school districts, the high school district yet? Not yet.
No, not yet. And I know one of the things that will be kind of part of the discussion, and I know the parents will probably come at some point to talk to you all, but it will be like really establishing also those relationships with organizations like ours to do some of that work. Or with any other organization, really, to provide the interpretation, because I know that it is hard to have and to build a bridge for parents to really understand what is happening with them. But we don't have any relationships specifically with interpretation. We do respond to the school a couple times in this district when they have reached out to us that they need support. And I know that also what district is... oh my God, El Sausal, I forgot what. Alisal. So I know we're working, and they have reached out to us to figure out how to set up a district contract to provide interpretation. So there's some work happening. Again, like we haven't done a lot of work in the region until early this year when the pandemic started. So we slowly kind of expanding our bandwidth too, and like our capacity to respond and to provide the training to the staff to be able to do some of that work. But yes, hopefully in the future we can do more of that work.
Is signage a possibility, or is it difficult because there's just so many different?
It is different because of the yes. I don't think it's a possibility just yet. I think we've been asked that, but because of the language difference, it has to be it has to be some baseline of how to understand that, and it just hasn't been created.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I applaud the work you're doing, and this particular parent, I couldn't get him to give me his phone number. I was trying to build that trust. That we could find resources for him. I was hoping he would reach out, but unfortunately, it's tough to build that relationship, right? But thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I am very, very happy. As a retired teacher, when I was teaching, I had children that spoke Spanish, and they spoke Mixteco, Tarascan, some of them that were the indigenous students that would come, Triqui, and I think there's another one, Chitano. And and I tell you, a lot of them came speaking Spanish also. So some of them, the parents that would talk to me, their first language would be their own language from whatever region they're at, but they would speak to me in Spanish. So it amazed me that they spoke the Spanish language too. However, I'm glad that this organization is in existence, because when I was teaching, we were the ones that they came to, and a lot of teachers couldn't communicate with them. So I'm really thrilled that this is. How long have you been in the organization? Has been?
Well, we have been, again, our organization started in Fresno. So we've been in Fresno for, almost 30 years now. But here in South County, we've been able to be there for like 15 years. And about 2 years ago, because of the pandemic, a lot of the things that happened, then we started expanding our work. And now we have an office here in Salinas. So hopefully it's just the beginning of, more years
Great.
to work.
No,
Yeah.
that is so great, because when I was teaching, it was probably 15 years ago that I used to get these children. I've been retired 5 years, but I used to get these children, and they were so darn smart, and they became trilingual. So it was amazing. I'm just glad that there's help, and the organization exists, and that you are all being very supportive. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just had one question. I know you had mentioned that the parents might come soon. Is there some sort of request that they kind of?
I don't know yet. So we are just finishing our meeting, these meetings, and we are at the end of the season for work, and I know that we'll probably have some of them, as part of like their learning to come and speak to you all. So I don't know yet, but I'll definitely let Summer know.
Yeah.
And then
And I had invited them. So part of the conversation that we've had when they started the Leadership Academy is for them to develop those skills, and then to bring those skills forward to us, to bring those concerns, so that I don't need to be the spokesperson, that that we want
Kinda
our
like
families to
empowering
be
them.
empowered to
Empowered, okay, makes
take
sense.
that lead. So we'll see what happens at graduation. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you.
And then I just want to kind of close with thanking Dr. Saray Martinez for the work that she's done. I learn from her all the time. I've had the privilege of knowing her for probably the last 15 years in our work together. And she teaches me something each time we have a conversation. We have an item that'll be coming up on the board agenda, which I'm going to just speak to a little bit, just because Saray is not aware. But I wanted to let you know that we will be tonight nominating Centro Binacional for the Excellence in Education nomination with the Monterey County Office of Education. So that'll be a board item this evening, and then that'll be moved forward to the Monterey County Office of Education. And just to thank you personally for the work you do in the community, and for all that you teach me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Definitely, and again, that belongs to all of the community and the staff that is working hard to uplift the voice of our communities through the county. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to 6.4, Superintendent's Cabinet, starting off with the Director of MOTF, Mr. Victor Sandoval. We'll wait a chance to do the other go.
Well, good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. Today, I just want to announce that our department is actually going to go through some certification training from Keenan on forklift, boom lift, and scissor lift. And it's going to be a 2-day training. And the folks in my departments are very excited, because they will be certified, and they will be able to, take their card and actually, basically be proud of what they're doing and what they're learning. Also, maintenance department has been, working on the Keenan audit, as I mentioned in my Friday letter. We're close to being completed, and we should be ready for the audit. Also, one of the things that we're working this weekend is starting the air filter replacement district-wide. So that should be this weekend and the following weekend. And this is so that we don't get in the way of, of teaching and stuff like that. So it's all being done during the weekends. And that's all I have for tonight.
I know we haven't talked about it in a while, but if in the future, not hasn't be today, but as the status of just the solar panels, and I guess what the kind of our next steps for that. Not right away. I know there's a lot of projects going on, but just to kind of.
No, it's quite easy. It's still in the background, and it's still being worked on. The solar panels, they've achieved. Well, unfortunately, the contractor, the initial contractor that did the initial installations, and Generate Capital, which is our PPA, our power purchasing agreement provider, has hired a new team of engineers, and they have come up with a solution which unfortunately we can't really do over the Christmas, but we're proposing to get a schedule in for this next summer. That way we could actually work in between the schools and stuff like that.
Board. Okay, thank you for the update. Okay, moving on to Chief Business Officer, Ms. Rosa Zamudio.
Good evening. So this last 2 weeks, we still been working with the auditors. They were here about 2 weeks ago, and this was their second visit. And they told us that this time they're gonna do a third visit just because there's more compliance. We have more grants, more work. So they're gonna come again, and based on the feedback that I got from him on his last visit, we don't have anything major that I'm concerned of. I think the great news is that he reviewed the packet for the unedited actuals, and everything passed fine. There's no findings or any revisions that we need to do to that. And also, as you know, that file or that financial report was also submitted to the Monterey County Office of Education. They have approved the report, and they also sent us the letter, which you're gonna see an informational item coming up. And as well, there's no findings for that as well. The audit report, we're planning to have a draft by November. So as I get more information, I'll be sharing with you. And the final report should be done in December. So more information to come about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you for the update. Director of Special Education and Student Services, Ms. Melanie Grundy.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I see a thumbs up, so hoping. We've been working just district-wide on having district-wide IEP days, or I also call them marathon days. Some of our school sites have been using these last year, but really with all the IEPs, with initials and tries, we've been really trying to be united and have IEP days. It's really helpful for service providers, especially the service providers that are shared between our sites, such as some of our school psychologists and our SLPs. So working on that with principals and school sites. Have had lots of initials and just trying to keep up with that. So working on balancing and sharing load and just monitoring each school site, making sure that we're not exceeding what our team's capacity is. So really working on referrals district-wide as well. And then we've just been doing rotation site visits. So just really grateful that I've been able to get to sites, my coordinator, as well as our special ed TOSA, our teacher on special assignment. So our goal is to get to each school site at least twice a month. So we have a pretty good rotation going, and it's just been nice to get into classrooms and see teachers and our team in action. So that's it for me, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
No questions? Okay, thank you for the update. Moving on to Director of Parent, Family, and Community Engagement, Dr. Summer Prather-Smith.
As always, I have a bunch of papers for you. So I want to start first with Migrant is beginning their official blanket and gift card drive for our Santa Rita families. So this will go out, but the board is the first to get it. And so please share with any others who you think might be able to support with the blanket drive and gift card drive. So thank you for that. The last 2 days and then continuing tomorrow, I've had the privilege of going with 2 of our school social workers and Chelsea Emery, our alternative to suspension teacher, over to Alvarez High School. Salinas Union High School District invited us to be part of a Girasol training, which is a training done by the National Compadres Network. It used to be Chinachli, so there used to be Joven Noble, that was for the boys, Chinachli, that was for the girls. They've revamped Chinachli and it's now Girasol. And so it's a 3-day trainer of trainers. So at the end of it, we'll have 4 of us that are fully trained to implement Girasol here with our middle school girls. So I'm excited about that, but I want to share with you a couple pieces from that. So I had homework tonight to color this, so I think you guys should have to homework tonight to color this also. But you'll see on the back is the idea of in la quech, and in la quech is really the Mayan idea of tú eres mi otro yo, right? You are the other me. And I just wanted to kind of read this quote from here because the last 2 days have been emotional. There's been a lot of crying involved. And I've come back and tried to share with everybody, and they're like, we don't want to cry too. But when I think about the idea of in la quech and I think about the work we're doing around restorative practices, it really hits home for me. And so the idea of in la quech is really that when you hurt, we all hurt. When you struggle, we all struggle. When you heal, we all heal. When you grow, we all grow. When you transform, we all transform. You are me, I am you, we are one. And so when we think about the idea of the implementation of restorative practices with our youth here, this idea of in la quech is really at the center of that, right? So that when our youth are hurting, we're hurting, and it's our responsibility as a community to come together and heal that. So I'm really excited to continue that training with them. We may be looking at the National Compadres Network. They're hard to get, but to do the Joven Noble and inviting Salinas Union to join us in that training so that we can support our young men also in that.
I had a question, and I'm actually really for both of those programs. They're really awesome.
Yeah.
So as far as putting the programs in place, like if you guys get the training, theoretically we'd have to get more staff to run it, or how would that kind
No, we would run it. So the 4 staff that are trained are the 4 staff we would run the groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the biggest thing is because I know, like Melanie was talking about capacity. I think if you guys do identify that, you know, that an additional person needs to happen, because I think one of the things, like even in your position, before you came along, all your responsibilities were shifted amongst the principals and the directors, so it was beyond the capacity of anybody who's as awesome as they may be. So I think if we do identify that, as much as awesome as everybody is, that we're reaching a certain capacity, you know, I really don't want the programs to suffer. So I think it'd be really good if we have the funding to be able to
do more. And we offered it to all of our school social workers and counselors. We're hoping that maybe kind of once we do a session and kind of, if you're not familiar with kind of the work of the National Compadres Network or with Chinachli or Girasol, it can be intimidating. And so my thought is that maybe after we do a group or 2, others may be interested once kind of they feel more comfortable with the process. So yes, so we're definitely open. There's not a large fee involved, so it's really just about people having time and capacity to do it. So yeah, I'm hoping that we can,
have to organize the groups and the calls and everything else that kind of comes with it.
Yeah. So we'll see how the first sessions go, and then we'll go from there. And then the last piece of, so anyway, just put this on your refrigerator and think about it. The last piece I have is that in our work with the Centro binacional, similar to last year when I was able to take some of our youth to the Black Youth Leadership Conference up north, they've invited us to bring some Indigenous youth to a youth leadership conference, which we will be doing. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend. The parents are always impressed at my ability to understand Mixteco. I cannot speak Mixteco, but I like to impress them with my knowledge. So I would like to be there to learn. But Andrea Perez and another teacher of our teachers from Gavilan View, Valoris, will be taking 6 girls to the leadership conference. So we're excited to have them come back and then share with us on that time. But this is just information about that upcoming conference. So that, I have one more piece of, I'm like, I have one more piece of paper. This isn't for you guys though. I'm also excited that I was able to work with Greg Fry with Monterey County Office of Education, and we'll be bringing the youth mental health first aid trainings here to the district instead of our staff needing to find places for that. We're working on finalizing that contract with him. I'm hopeful that I'll bring it to you at our next board meeting. These will be after school, and then a few Saturday sessions that they can choose either after school or Saturday sessions if they choose to take the youth mental health first aid, and it can be counted as part of their 30 hours of paid professional development. So it's definitely a growing need in our community, so I'm happy that we'll be able to bring that to the district.
Any questions or comments from the board? Oh, okay. Yeah, I just appreciate the direction. I think these programs are really great. So, okay. Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Donna Coney.
Thank you, Summer. All of those are so dear to my heart that I got to gather myself. Yes, and Chuck's not here tonight, but I want to shout out to Chuck and also his team and speak with him for him. We rolled out the GV kitchen Monday and for serving lines inside, and shout out to Alberto's team, nutrition staff, PE teachers, Jose, our custodian. The collaborative work Monday, Tuesday went much better, much faster. And, just the timing of setting up, being ready to go. Once those lines were done, 15, 20 minutes, the kids are served, they're eating, and then those kids that trickle in at the end, they just serve them out the back window, and that way Jose can come in, clean the gym, and Miss Johnson and Mr. Flores and Mr. Pagani can be ready for PE in a timely manner for the next period. And it's becoming a very well-oiled machine. And shout out to Carmen and her team, and Julian and the team's just amazing. So I'm really happy with that. And Chuck's, when he sees it, it's going to warm his heart. So I just want to shout that out. So if he's out there listening. Also, next week, Krisha Kerpel will be taking a team to an AVID conference. And she's got already sharing with Rosa, she's working on a 3-year plan, budget-wise and conference-wise and training-wise for our AVID team. And we met with the Corwin representative for who's working with restorative justice, the PLC Plus, another direction to go deeper. And I'll be taking a team to the PLC conference down in LA next week, picking up some at the airport after they get done with AVID and taking them then to LA for the PLC conference. So that's very exciting to go deeper with that team. And I want to thank Lori Carey from MCOE, the math coordinator. She came and did an amazing presentation about the math framework, engaging activities, had the curriculum council asking questions. What's the next step? If we need to bring her back to answer deeper questions, we will do that as we go.
Thank you. Any questions on the board? Okay, thank you for the update. Assistant Superintendent of Human Resource, Ms. Becky Moore.
Thank you. I have just a few things to report. In human resources, we are still working on onboarding and training our new HR analyst. So Charlotte has been really spending a lot of time training to make sure that we can continue to offer quality services to our employees and the public who reach out to us. We have an offer out to an HR specialist, so we're excited to have a full team soon, we hope. We are working on various reports that are due, census reports that are annual, and another one that's every other year that are tedious and time consuming but important for the state data. We are also working on preparing for our MCSIG open enrollment, which starts November 1st, so next week, and we'll be hosting presentations from MCSIG for the staff so that people can ask any questions they have about plans. Our consultant or contracted service with Ben Elevate for the public service loan forgiveness has a survey out for all of our employees to provide information regarding their student loans and find out if they will qualify for loan forgiveness. And so we're excited to be working on that. I will have a meeting with him in the next couple of weeks to get some more data on how that is impacting our staff. And then finally, I attended today our MIRMA Risk Management Association JPA board meeting and got some information about our current status for workers' comp claims and some decisions on how we're going to be spending money to prevent risk in our school district. So it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board? No, thank you for the update. Moving on to the board and the superintendent, we'll start off with Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
I have nothing to report.
Ms. Alvariano.
I just have a few things to report. Let me think here. I went to Santa Rita to help out with passing out lists and door hangers for a couple of hours from 2 to 4. And then I walked also for Measure R. And I did a lot of the Area 3. And at the phone banks too. So, and last but not least, I did go visit the book fair at McKinnon. And of course, I did some Christmas shopping there. and my grandson too. He picked out books. So yeah, it was a good day. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. For me, there's just one thing I just want to mention is, and we're about 2 weeks away from elections. Just want to let the public know it's important to vote. There's a lot of different positions and measures and elected officials. Just remember that hopefully you choose individuals that support our schools, whether it be our school district, Santa Rita, or Salinas Union High School. That's super important. So please don't forget to vote. The other thing I want to mention is I do appreciate how open our district is. This is for public participation. We still do Zoom, so anybody out there listening in, we have different ways of participating in the meetings. And that's about it. Miss Superintendent Alderman.
Thank you. We attended, well, Summer and Becky and I and a couple of our board members, a community meeting at the Gavilan Library last night regarding placement of a recreational center somewhere in our area. They were seeking additional community input on where that might go. Unfortunately, there's not a good parcel of city-owned land that would allow it to be necessarily close in our school district boundaries, and so I know they're going to explore some more options, but we did let them know that if they wanted to do some additional community engagement or survey or a pop-up informational booth, we could help them out with that, you know, at one of our school sites. I know they've done that, and so we let them know to just reach out if they wanted to do some more engagement activities here specific in our district. Wanted to remind the board wanted to remind the board that we only have one board meeting scheduled for the month of November on the 9th due to the holidays being right there when our second meeting would normally occur. I've just been given a note here at the news desk to remind everyone that we are looking for some additional alternative income forms for our family. It has a potential huge fiscal impact. So between our CBO, our Director of Parent and Community Engagement, our school site principals, secretaries, a lot of our staff, doing some extra hours reaching out to our families about getting that information. Potential families who qualify with that form, it could bring in as much as $3,000 per student who they qualify. So we've still got we've cut it down from over 700 now that we're seeking like the last 200 of them. And so every last effort helps. And so when people are reached out, if you can just help us out with that, it's ultimately going towards benefiting our students.
I know you previously had mentioned that there was a video that was being worked on.
So we did an informational video. She's editing that now. Our goal was to have it ready for a recruitment booth that Becky and Summer will have at the ASHA conference for speech language pathologists. We needed to set a date, and we thought, well, if you had something ready by then, and that is happening the week after Veterans Day, so around the 16th of November. That's our timeline for hopefully having that ready. And if we have that in advance, we'll certainly share that out. Looking for a couple of clips of that, a longer video for our website, and then potentially a shorter one that we could put on air as advertisement.
And I think the other question I had was, I think you mentioned the Friday later as far as the equipment arriving, I think, for the mobile board meetings. When was that?
So Krisha and Hussam found some different equipment that isn't as delayed in shipping and maybe actually better for us in the long run. So hopefully we'll have that and can start our mobile board meetings, making sure that we get out to, we have think of ourselves as like three learning communities, right? La Jolla and JG. You have McKinnon and New Republic, and then Santa Rita and Gavilan View. But making sure that we're having some board meetings in our learning communities and maybe helping reach out to some of our Indigenous families, getting other people to come in and maybe do some presentations at those as it pertains to their particular community when we do those meetings. So we should hopefully have that soon, in about 4 to 6 weeks instead of months, and we can get that started.
Okay, so that's pretty exciting that maybe by the beginning of next year that we get our first board meeting, you know, at one of our different learning communities. So so thank you for that. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, moving on to 7.1. Is there any public comment regarding non-agenda items?
No, there's not.
And how about agenda items?
No, there's not.
Okay. We're moving on to 8.1, MCOE unaudited actuals review letters. This is an informational item.
Yeah, so that's just informational. Is the letter that we got from MCOE, just kind of like giving a summary of the review they do. And once they finalize the review and everything is accurate, then they submit that data to the state. So it's just letting us know that everything was accurate, and then they have submitted that data to the state. And pretty much that's the final process for that report.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. 8.2, informational facilities committee updates.
Okay, so that's my item. So we probably had our shortest meeting that we've had in prior months. I think one of the discussions that we did is, of course, we introduced Board Member Turner into the team and a couple of other people. But what we did is we just did an update. It's kind of on hold right now, solely because we're doing a lot of stuff on the background in order to come back to the committee with some renderings and stuff like that of what we're doing. But we are still on track to install a JGMS locker room and the regrading of the hardtop. 2 shade structures over at McKinnon, 2 shade structures over at New Republic, and GV right now, the installation of 4 new classrooms for the first phase is on hold until we get the Attorney General's description and or guidelines of what we can do with piggybacks. The one thing that we did add to our meeting is it's a new policy by CDE, and it's called the educational specification. So basically, I'll try and make this into a synopsis, but it's kind of almost like a master plan that has to be board approved and submitted to CDE for approval too. But basically, the justification is to kind of come up and marry designs of buildings with the educational program specifically. So basically, it's kind of a task, and some of the guidelines for the committee are based on administration, design teams, staff, and board members. Which, fortunately, we already have the facilities committee, so it's a perfect platform to go ahead and introduce this to them. And then, of course, after we come up with a final draft, we'll present it to the board for approval, and then we'll submit it to CDE. And that's pretty much all I have. Any questions?
Currently meet?
Pretty much once a month, except for during the summer. It takes a break.
And then who do we currently have? As I know we have different Jakes on there, right? I think Jake Flores.
Here, I can tell you right now. I'm sorry, I wasn't really ready to
Pull up the list.
Okay.
So we've got some district administration, site administration. We have, do we have 4 teachers? 5? It's 2 and 2. 2 middle school, 2 elementary, 3 elementary, 2 middle school, and 2 board members. And we also have classified staff who've joining us for this year, and then asking our principals to see if maybe they've got some parents who might want to step in and be on that as well.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, but I know since that's a new committee, I don't know, do we do that annually where we choose who sits on those committees? Oh, is that coming up?
We do that as part of our reorganization meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Any questions from the board besides it? Okay, thank you, Victor. Okay, moving on to 10.1, approval of Central Coast VNA contract.
Thank you. I'm going to cover this for Melanie. And so this is a contract that we have had for a few years. There is mandatory vision and hearing screening that is required annually district-wide. And so the Central Coast VNA contract provides an additional nurse to support us in conducting those screenings.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 11.1, approval of contract with Kimball and Associates LLC.
See, I wasn't here last week, so I have a bunch of stuff. No. So this is phase 3 of our active crisis, active shooter training. So as you know, we started with our tabletop leadership discussion. We moved into our staff training right before the school year started. Now this is the student parent component of that active crisis, active shooter training. It includes teaching materials for the teachers to use within their classroom, materials for us to use with parents. It has videos, all kinds of posters that'll be posted across our schools.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, approval of 11.2, approval of nomination of Centro Binacional para el Desarrollo Indígena Oaxaqueño as the nominees for the 2023 Excellence in Education Award.
So this item, as I shared with you earlier when Sarai was here, MCOE requested some new organizations to add to their list of nominees. And seeing the great work that's happened with Centro Binacional in our district, I felt it important to put them forward as a nominee.
Thank you for doing that.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, awesome, and good luck to them. 11.3, approval of contract with STEM Center USA for Fall Parent Student Workshop Series.
So at the conclusion of our STEM workshops last year between winter and summer, we had several of the learning kits left just based on numbers. And the way that the charge comes for those is we're charged for the instructor and we're charged for the kits. As we saw the kits sitting there, that seems like a great use of some materials for us. So I reached out to STEM Center USA, worked with them to put together a parent-student training. We'll be able to utilize the current materials we have. They'll provide the instructors. And what we're hoping is that this feeds into 2 things. 1, some additional STEM work during our intercession programs, and then 2, an in-person parent opportunity. So this will be offered virtually using the kits we have. It'll build interest, and then we can actually bring STEM Center USA here and do some in-person opportunities with families as well.
It's exciting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay.
I'm going to look for you on there, Andrew.
I know. I was gonna- Item 12.1, approval of the 2022-2023 school site plans for student achievements.
So this is the annual school site plan that all school sites have put together, and they built these plans collaboratively with their school site councils, their ELAC teams, also collaborated with each other and ourselves, and we had some breakout sessions just to make sure that everything is dotted I's and crossed T's, and want to appreciate the school site councils and the ELACs and also the site principals for their work on this.
Yeah, I was looking. It's a lot of information, but looks like we have a lot of work ahead of us as far as the scores. I'm sure COVID really messed students up quite a bit. So, any questions?
No. Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, our next regular board meeting is going to be November 9th, 2022, and that's the only one we're going to have in November. And then in December, you might not know, but do we have one or one as well? Okay, good to know. And that's just going to be our reorganization meeting potentially, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then
In my ear. I need to check with board availability for the 7th of November. We could schedule a special meeting to go over our Kimball safety reports. We'll have a closed session and then he'll do a report out for our community on what the district is doing and what next steps would be. And so I'll send an email tomorrow to solicit if that evening or a different one, and we'll give you a couple dates and times to maybe set that up.
So that'd be a Monday, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll send an email and then we'll kind of.
Yeah. Personally, I would prefer another day. But
Yeah, 'cause I think that's the day before elections. Yeah, so I think ideally it'd probably be a couple days afterwards. Yeah, possibly. Okay. Suggested future board items. No. One thing for me, once we do get our equipment to do I'd like to do a press release. Because that's pretty huge, I think, within districts or schools or cities to be able to do mobile school board meetings. So I think it's really important to show the great things that Santa Rita is doing to try to do parent engagement. I think that was it. Let me look at my other notes really quick.
oh, Summer, when's the graduation is tomorrow? What time and where's that gonna?
They start at 6 o'clock at the Family Resource Center at Santa Rita.
Oh, okay.
In that room right there.
Yeah, I think that's it for now. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn at 7:02?
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.